Pralaya Payogi Jale Dritava Nasirera Vihitava Hira Charita Mate Krishna Vita Nina Sharira Jaya Vita Hare Jaganti Vahate Bhudolamute Jaityam Gadayate Valinchalayate Shasayam Purvate Olasyam Gayate Hayam Kalayate One more time. Krishnaya Tubhya Namah Go Premanande Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Lecturing verses from ISKCON of Silicon Valley. You can sit down if you want. It's going to be a while. Barhapidam Tavaravapu Karnayo Karnikardam Barhapidam Tavaravapu Karnayo Karnikardam Vibradvasa Kanatapisham Vaijayantim Shamalam Randranvenor Adhara Sudaya Punayam Gopavrindaye Vrindaranya Swapadaramanam Bhavisha Irta Kirti Havakatam Ritam Sakta Jivanam Kavidiritam Kalmashapaham Shravana Mangalam Srimaratakam Bhumigranantiye Huridajana Krishna Kirtana Gana Natanakala Pathodani Vrajita Bhakta Balihamsa Chakramajupa Sheni Viharastatam Karnanam Nikalavanirbhatu Me Shiva Maru Prangane Damodaya Shamyakshastra Vivadaya Rasagaya Chikatito Madaya Bhakti Vinodaya Samadaya Madhurya Maya Malati Surabaya Radha Smarane Daram Vibhadane Rashmi Vitu Pujane Akurasta Vibandane Kapapati Dasye Tatsakye Juna Sarvasvasmani Lerane Baleravu Krishna Tire Sampara Aradho Bhagavan Vajesha Tanaya Tadgama Vrindavanam Ramya Pachirupasana Pradavadu Parvenaya Kautika Srimad Bhagavatam Pramana Mangalam Prema Pumarto Maha Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Nakamidam Kastagarana Para Alana Macharina Narabara Srinam Snaramurtiman Gopanam Svajano Satam Chitibuja Shastasati Prositu Vidyorgodapate Virara Vidusa Tattva Param Yogina Krishna Paradeva Keti Vidito Randam Gasasagraja Kaivalyam Narakaya Keti Vidashapu Akasha Pushpayate Yurdam Kendriya Kala Sarpa Patali Rotatatam Prayate Vishvam Purna Sukayate Vidimahe Dradishtakti Kayate Yadkarum Nakatasya Bhavavata Sandorane Vatuma Asam Moho Charana Renujusham Mahansyam Vrindavane Kimapi Gurmablathoshadhinam Yadushya Jam Swajanamaya Patam Shahitva Vejur Mukunda Padavim Shruti Vibringyam Evam Bhuvana Viraham Tubhrisham Rajastriya Krishna Vishakta Manasa Visve Jalajam Rudusma Susmaram Govinda Damodara Madhaveti Govinda Modara Madhaveti Govinda Damodara Madhaveti Traya Chapushcha Sankhya Yogaishcha Sattvatah Bhagiyamana Mahatmyam Harim Samanyathatmajam Hare Krishna Hare Bhagavatam class. If you all can stay, we'll be here all day, but not contiguously. Thank you. Compliments to the decorating team. I was very touched by the arrows. It's tastefully done. It's everything so well thought out. Surya Vamsha, as Hansapriya pointed out. And just a slight hint, the mixture of Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan, who of course we worship in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan because we're in the Panchratchiki and the Vaidhi Marg, which is the pathway that leads to Raga Nuga, spontaneous devotional service, as we're practicing by following the footsteps of the Goswamis of Vrindavan who are following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Our kind of Vaidhi Bhakti leads to spontaneity. Part of that is the Udipanas that stimulated remembrance of Krishna. And we have these festivals and the curtains open and we see Shri Shri Radha Krishna and then we see the bow and arrow. We remember the Dasavatar Stotram and how Krishna is the fountainhead of all rasas, including bringing forth into the world the Maryada sense of Ramachandra and Sita. Good job. Is there a marker? You just put that one on here. And I was thinking also, continuing from this morning, and I see there's pictures all around the room, so nicely placed. It's just heartwarming and beautiful. Hand-painted drawings of the pastimes of Lord Ram. And it's a great refuge, isn't it? To come here and feel excited to be here and then to be enveloped by the Leela of the Lord. Krishna manifests the material world. There's a Shrishti Leela. Shrishti comes forth from his heart, actually. In fact, in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada describes how in the Virat Rupa, the sky is the heart of the Lord. So we're actually enveloped by the Lord. And even though the material creation can be misused for the purposes of the wayward souls who have made a vow to forget Krishna, still Krishna is there out of compassion for everyone. He comes to the world again and again to show how beautiful his pastimes are. And even those who are of demoniac nature, when they hear Hare Krishna, when they are able to come in contact with Krishna, they become purified. I learned something this morning when we took our morning break just after japa, to slip in a little extra shastra in one of the back rooms. We were reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is mentioned there that the demoness, Shurpanaka, who is sister of Ravana, great family, she came out of a sense of lust, seeing Ram. Most everyone who saw Ram had a sense of, wait a minute, what? Who is that? And she, as described in Brahma Samhita, yet kroda kama sahaja pranayadi piti vatsalya moha guru gaura vasevya bhavai sanchintya tasya sadrishim dharma purete govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. What an unusual and all-accommodating philosophy given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how he introduced the Brahma Samhita, that whatever emotion one has when one sees the Lord, it's counted. Yam kroda, if you're angry at the Lord. Kama, if you're lusty towards the Lord. Yet krama kroda sahaja. Sahaja means there's some natural friendly love, just like, oh, I'd like to hold hands, or, let's go play in the forest. Bhiti, out of fear. All of those emotions that come when one sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, based on the disposition of the beholder, which we sang in one of the verses as Krishna entered the wrestling arena. We sing that verse. And in that wrestling arena, there were groups of people from various backgrounds, and they all saw Krishna differently. They all saw him in a unique way according to their disposition. And so some saw him as beautiful as Cupid, more beautiful than Cupid. Some saw him as their friend. Others saw him as a member of their family, a hero. Others saw him as, the wrestlers saw him as death personified, and so forth. But whatever way one sees the Lord, then that purification takes place. So as we read in the Bhagavatam about Shurpanakha, and we know that Ram and Lakshman had been asked to go to the forest by Shamrita, and Dasharatha had hesitated because they were just adolescents at that time, albeit obviously self-effulgent and all-powerful, the heroes of Ayodhya. And Dasharatha hesitated because he was attached. He said, "Oh, don't send Ram, I'll bring my armies. Let's just do that." And Vishwamrita said, "Yeah, no. I want him. And if you insist along this way, it'll lead to your ruination because you just offered me whatever I want. I'm your guest here." And Vishishta pulled Dasharatha aside and said, "Let him go." I was thinking about Vishishta and how he had the insider's knowledge that they were the Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, or according to the Padma Purana, there's the Padma, the Shankha, and Shesha, and Vasudeva. Different ideas, but they're all manifested Vishnu Tattva in the world, and Vishishta knew that. And he presented it, of course, different accounts of the summary of the Ramayana, but he told them, "Don't worry, he'll learn a lot. And by the way, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so don't worry. He'll be fine." And they went to the forest to cut down the demoniac forces who are always there. Whenever you perform a yajna in this world, there's somebody that wants to either disparage or stop it or insist on another permit so that you can't do it. And we find that materialists are fine to let commerce go forward. We had been participants in one of the greatest world stages for 25 years, that is the airports of America, due to a lawsuit where we had sued the Port of Authority in Los Angeles because they said we couldn't sell books in the airport. So we started a lawsuit that was actually begun by Bhubaneswar Prabhu because he was more of a cook and not so much a book distributor, so they figured he could be a sacrificial lamb. They sent him out to get arrested. Your service would be to get arrested. And Bhubaneswar Prabhu was a natural comedian. He passed during the pandemic, but he used to joke about so many things. He had a wry sense of humor, and he said, "Yeah, I couldn't even do that." He said everyone else got arrested right away when they went out. He said it took me 2 weeks. I was distributing right in front of the police, and they wouldn't arrest me. In any case, he got arrested, and that started a court case that our lawyer, Barry Fisher, kept going for 25 years, which kept us in the airport arena. And finally, at the Supreme Court level, they said, "Yeah, no." And it was mostly because of 9/11. They used that as an excuse for we have security measures. But I noticed that right after they asked us to leave on the basis of it was dangerous for us to be standing there talking to people because somebody might, I don't know what. But right after we left, then the credit card companies came out and they were standing in the same spot we used to stand in, taking twice as long as we used to take. And I was thinking that in the demoniac civilization, people really don't like having people around talking about God. And that's going on since the Ramayana, because when they would perform sacrifices, these demons would come and try to ruin the sacrifices, because that's the demoniac nature. They don't like to see something auspicious going on, so they asked, or Vishwamrita asked Ram and Lakshman to go and cut them down, which they did. And during that excursion, Shurpanakha came, and she was attracted to Ram. And in the course of their interlude, she had asked Ram to marry her, and he said, I only have one wife, she's right here, and so why don't you ask my brother? And Lakshman was there, and he said, yeah, no. And she became incensed by being refused by both of them. She transformed herself back from the form of being very beautiful into her ghastly form. And Ram had suggested that because she tried to attack Sita, that she be punished. Lakshman had snipped off her tip of her nose and her ears. And then she went back and told her brothers about it, who came to try to cut down Ram. They thought, we'll make quick work of this, but they were cut down. That's what started the wave of rumors about Ram in the forest, and Ravana heard about Sita, how beautiful she was. So this morning when we were discussing this, somebody asked, who was it, about Shurpanakha, and said, so usually there's a continuing story. So what was that? And I said, I don't know, it's probably somewhere in the Puranas. But then we had our very own Sadhu Vrindavan said, yes, in the Valmiki Ramayana, it's described how Shurpanakha, after seeing Ram in that situation, being disfigured, then she set her heart on being with him, and for 10,000 years, she meditated and prayed, did austerities, and she appeared in Krishna Lila as Kubja. And Krishna fulfilled her desire. So one of the points of we were talking about yesterday is Krishna's all good, and he also fulfills the desires of everyone. Since time immemorial, he's been in our hearts here, whatever form we take in the material world, guiding us. And when we have the good fortune of coming to meet Krishna or his devotees in this world, Brahmanda Brahmate Kon Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij, there can be an awakening of desire for the Lord in one way or the other. And Shukadeva Goswami says in the Bhagavatam, Akama Sarva Kamova, Moksha Kama Udaradi, Tivrena Bhakti Yogina Yajeta Purusham Param. Whatever way you're coming, as long as you're attracted and you can invest that attraction towards the service to Krishna, Tivrena Bhakti, so that's okay. There's an opening for you, and Krishna will purify you, and you'll be able to go back to Godhead. So the appearance days of the Lord are especially a reminder to us of how fortunate we are as those who have signed up for the whole course. And we get treated to these scenes of Shri Shri Radhaman and Mohan, the arrows, bows and arrows of Ramachandra and Lakshman and so forth. And it takes us more deeply within the Leela of Krishna. And just by hearing about Krishna and then feeling stimulated, udipana, by noticing the beautiful decorations, that there's a bow and arrow there, we remember these pastimes. This inoculates us from the pettiness of the material world or the petty desires that one may have to enjoy the material world. Yat pada pankacha palasa vilasa bhakta. That when there's a vilas, there's an enjoyment we get from remembering Krishna's lotus feet. That he is a person and he's benevolent to everyone. But he's also beautiful, he's also funny, he's a source of all entertainment. As a child, he eats dirt. His mother says, your brother said you ate dirt, all your friends said you ate dirt. Krishna says, they're lying. There's a vilas, there's an enjoyment. And that enjoyment, when it's in relationship to Krishna, it captures our hearts. And yet pada pankacha palasa vilasya bhakta karmashrayam gratitam ugratayanti shanta. The devotees who have access to this information and to the sangha of others who are relishing it, they can cut the knot that ties them to this material world. Krishna's pastimes are didactic also. We were reading this morning about how troublesome the material world is and how complicated the situation is. Bhagavatam was saying Sita went along, shouldn't have gone on the trip because, they're going to the forest. But it happened, and then it got really complicated with the kidnapping and everything. So Bhagavatam says, try to live a simple life, And so we're very fortunate to be here today. I feel a special spiritual pulse in the air this morning to be here on Ram Navami. It's also historic. Today is the 12th anniversary of our being in this building. Hare Krishna. And going on across on the other side of the world, there's a celebration in Vrindavan, which is probably really roaring right now because it's at night. But it's the 50th anniversary of the opening of the Krishna Balaram Mandir. Hare Krishna. And I'm happy to say I was there at that opening, and we thought about going, but it seemed a little pressing to fly all the way over and then fly all the way back and so forth. But I must say, realizing the absolute nature of our process, because being here today, I feel so filled up by this Sangha, all of us here from Mangalartik, and having the opportunity to celebrate together. It's so nice. Karma Shayam, that becomes destroyed when we're in this environment and when we're hearing about Krishna. Tadvanda rikta matayo yatayo pirudha. Others who don't have this, which means they're rikta matayo, literally means they're empty-headed. And what fills up there is the same old, same, as they say in India. And in Thailand they say, same, but different. It's a chintabeda. And they say, material world, actually it looks like it's different, but it's same. Same modes, just rehashed, remixed. And if you're Rikta Matayo, that's all you get. It's like you have the same thing to eat every day. It's just mixed in different ways. But the spiritual world actually has the real variety, the vilas. That's what we're looking for. Satisfied soul. Rikta Matayo Pirudha. Shroto Ganas Tamaranam Bhajavasudevam. And therefore, unlike those who are trying some artificial process that's missing the vilas. They get washed away by the waves of the material existence, but we get washed away by a different wave, by the waves of the beauty of Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan and these bows and arrows. We'll never forget this. It's quite amazing in this backdrop. Right? Even if you think you forget it, during the time when we transition from this body, all the ways that we've engaged in devotional service, all the festivals, every person you talk to on Sankirtan, everything you've heard, it all comes as a wave, like a tidal wave, into our consciousness. So it's a good idea, a really good strategy to figure out how to make comprehensive, a lifetime dedicated to Krishna. Just to decide once and for all. There's so many different options and there may be many doubts, but it's a much better idea to make a resolute decision, make a decision resolutely that I'll just follow the path of the six Goswamis, and that's it. And whatever is best for my devotional service, I'll do that. And if it seems to be bad for my devotional service, then I'll just reject it. And I don't care what anybody says. And if we can just put together one lifetime like that, then the force of our investment from this lifetime will come to bear at the time when we leave this body, and we'll be attracted to the spiritual world. And whatever we're attracted to when we leave this body, that's where we go. We get accommodated. And that's a good thing. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Jasoda Nandana Jaya Vraja Jana Ranjana Jaya Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Jamuna Tiravana Chari Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. We find in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that Lord Chaitanya at Madhya Lila 9, text 178, arrives in southern Mathura. From Kamakoshti, he met a Brahmana. And here in the purport is a description of the scene. Southern Mathura, presently known as Madurai, is situated on the banks of the Bhagai River. This place of pilgrimage is specifically meant for the devotees of Lord Shiva. Therefore, it is called Shaiva Kshetra. That is the place where Lord Shiva is worshipped. In this area, there are mountains and forests. There are also 2 Shiva temples, one known as Rameshwara and the other known as Sundareshwara. There is also a temple of Devi called the Meenakshi Devi Temple, which displays very great architectural craftsmanship. It was built under the supervision of the kings of the Pandya dynasty, and when the Muslims attacked this temple, as well as the temple of Sundareshwara, great damage was done. In the Christian year 1372, a king named Kampana Udayara reigned on the throne of Madurai. Long ago, Emperor Kulikshekar ruled this area, and during his reign he established a colony of Brahmanas. A well-known king named Anantaguna Pandya is an 11th generation descendant of Emperor Kulikshekar. The Brahmana who met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu invited the Lord to his home. This Brahmana was a great devotee and an authority on Lord Sri Ramachandra. He was always detached from material activities. After bathing in the river Kritamala, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the Brahmana's house to take lunch, but he saw that the food was unprepared because the Brahmana had not cooked it. Seeing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "My dear sir, please tell me why you have not cooked. It is already noon." The Brahmana replied, "My dear Lord, we are living in the forest. For the time being, we cannot get all the ingredients for cooking. When Lakshmana brings all the vegetables, fruits, and roots from the forest, Sita will do the necessary cooking." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very satisfied to hear about the Brahmana's method of worship. Finally, the Brahmana hastily made arrangements for cooking. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his lunch at about 3 o'clock, but the Brahmana, being very sorrowful, fasted. While the Brahmana was fasting, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him, "Why are you fasting? Why are you so unhappy? Why are you so worried?" The Brahmana replied, "I have no reason to live. I shall give up my life by entering either fire or water. My dear sir, Mother Sita is the mother of the universe and the supreme goddess of fortune. She has been touched by the demon Ravana, and I am troubled upon hearing this news." I'll read that over. "My dear sir, Mother Sita is the mother of the universe and the supreme goddess of fortune. She has been touched by the demon Ravana, and I am troubled upon hearing this news. Sir, due to my unhappiness, I cannot continue living. Although my body is burning, my life is not leaving." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "Please do not think this way any longer. You are a learned Pandit. Why don't you consider the case?" Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, "Sita Devi, the dearmost wife of the Supreme Lord Ramachandra, certainly has a spiritual form full of bliss. No one can see her with material eyes, for no materialist has such power. To say nothing of touching Mother Sita, a person with material senses cannot even see her. When Ravana kidnapped her, he kidnapped only her material illusory form. As soon as Ravana arrived before Sita, she disappeared. Then just to cheat Ravana, she sent an illusory material form. Spiritual substance is never within the jurisdiction of the material conception. This is always the verdict of the Vedas and Puranas." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then assured the Brahmana, "Have faith in my words and do not burden your mind any longer with this misconception." This is the process of spiritual understanding. Achintya kalos ye bhava na tams tarakena yojayet. We should not try to understand things beyond our material conception by argument and counter-argument. Mahajano yena katasapanta. We have to follow in the footsteps of great authorities coming down in the parampara system. If we approach a bona fide acharya and keep faith in his words, spiritual realization will be easy. 196. Although the Brahmana was fasting, he had faith in the words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and accepted food. In this way, his life was saved. After thus assuring the Brahmana, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu proceeded further into southern India and finally arrived at Durvashana, where he bathed in the river Kritamala. At Durvashana, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the temple of Lord Ramachandra, and on the hill known as Mahendra Shaila, he saw Lord Parashurama. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Setubandha, Rameshwara, where he took bath at the place called Danus Tirtha. From there he visited Rameshwara temple and then took rest. There among the Brahmanas, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu listened to the Kurma Purana, wherein is mentioned the chaste woman's narration. Srimati Sita Devi is the mother of the three worlds and the wife of Lord Ramachandra. Among chaste women, she is supreme, and she is the daughter of King Janak. When Ravana came to kidnap Mother Sita, and she saw him, she took shelter of the fire god, Agni. The fire god covered the body of Mother Sita, and in this way she was protected from the hands of Ravana. Upon hearing from the Kurma Purana how Ravana had kidnapped a false form of Mother Sita, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very satisfied. The fire god Agni took away the real Sita and brought her to the place of Parvati, goddess Durga. An illusory form of Mother Sita was then delivered to Ravana, and in this way Ravana was cheated. After Ravana was killed by Ramachandra, Sita Devi was brought before the fire and tested. When the illusory Sita was brought before the fire by Lord Ramachandra, the fire god made the illusory form disappear and delivered the real Sita to Lord Ramachandra. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this story, he was very pleased, and he remembered the words of Ramdas Vipra. Indeed, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard these conclusive statements from the Kurma Purana, he felt great happiness. After asking the Brahmana's permission, he took possession of the manuscript leaves of the Kurma Purana. Since the Kurma Purana was very old, the manuscript was also very old. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took possession of the original leaves in order to have direct evidence. The text was copied onto new leaves in order that the Purana be replaced. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then returned to southern Madurai, and delivered the original manuscript of the Kurma Purana to Ramdas Vipra. Book distribution. When he was petitioned by Mother Sita, the fire god Agni brought forth an illusory form of Sita and Ravana, who had 10 heads, kidnapped the false Sita. The original Sita then went to the abode of the fire god. When Lord Ramachandra tested the body of Sita, it was the false illusory Sita that entered the fire. At that time, the fire god brought the original Sita from his abode and delivered her to Lord Ramachandra. That's from the Kurma Purana. Ramdas Vipra was very pleased to receive the original leaf manuscript of the Kurma Purana, and he immediately fell down before the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and began to cry. After receiving the manuscript, the Brahmana, being very pleased, said, "Sir, you are Lord Ramachandra himself and have come in the dress of a sannyasi to give me audience. My dear sir, you have delivered me from a very unhappy condition. I request that you take your lunch at my place. Please accept this invitation. Due to my mental distress, I could not give you a very nice lunch the other day. Now, by good fortune, you have come again to my home." Saying this, the Brahmana very happily cooked food, and a first-class dinner was offered to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed that night in the house of the Brahmana. Then, after showing him mercy, the Lord started toward the Tamyaparni river in Bangladesh. So here we find the way that the devotees who are hearing about Krishna's pastimes enter into them. And especially striking in this section is the description by Kaviraj Goswami of how Ramdas Vipra was so distraught with the idea that Ravana had touched Sita that he wanted to enter fire himself. And Rupa Goswami has discussed the prerequisite for advancing in devotional service. Tan nama rupa charitari sukirtananu smrityo kramena rasanamanasi niyoja tishtam vraje tananuragi jananugami kalam nayed akilamityupadesha saram. That's to hear and chant, hear about the Lord sufficiently so that one enters into the pastimes. What's more, one begins to feel affected by them and feel a kinship with the eternal associates of the Lord who are associating with the Lord, what to speak of the Lord himself. And this is what the Bhagavatam promises over and over again. Narada Muni had mentioned it to his disciple Vyasadeva. by saying that it will transform us from our attachments to the material world. Viplava, he used the word. That it'll flip you over from being emotionally attached to this material world, which will be certain to swallow you up into samsara. As I mentioned in the beginning, there's a way in which our emotions are what obligate us to various environments by the accommodation of Krishna and the material nature. And tadvag visargo janataga viplavo. These narrations of the pastimes of the Lord are not from the material world. They're completely spiritual in nature. So, as the Bhagavatam mentions, if one committedly listens to these narrations of the pastimes of the Lord, what to speak of cultivating Atma Tattva Gyan, an understanding of how we're not this material body, we don't belong to the material world, then, as Rupa Goswami says, we'll actually enter into the pastimes themselves emotionally, as Ramdas Vipra did. And we can see from our main Acharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he was very pleased with the kind of devotional service that Ramdas Vipra was doing. This doesn't invite us to imitate that mode of service, but it does show us an indication of the ways that the devotees who are cultivating bhakti by hearing from Bhagavatam enter into the pastime and become emotionally attached. And as we become emotionally attached to what happens to Krishna and his devotees, then we're pulled into the spiritual world by that transcendental vibration. And viplava, tadvag visargo janataga viplava, means you get flipped back over, like those little bugs, they get on their back, and they're going, hold on. You can come back to your original position, viplava, you're flipped now, called vimukha, somehow turned away from the Lord, face turned away from the Lord, but by hearing we can come back. So certainly these days of the Lord's appearance are a reminder to us to cultivate this desire for hearing. And Jiva Goswami says in his Sandarbha that you can understand your own advancement by how eager you are to hear. It's not to say that, okay, somebody's feeling not as inclined, but one must practice hearing on a regular daily basis until one begins to be attracted. The reason I'm not attracted to chanting Hare Krishna or to hearing the pastimes is because the effects of Rajagun and Tamagun within my mind. But Shrinvatam Swa Kata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Shridyan Taksto Hibadrani Vidunoti Suratsatam. The effects of Rajas and Tamas are quickly dissipated by the hearing of Krishna's pastimes and of Atma Tattva Gyan. And one then desires to hear. And Jiva Goswami says to the degree that one desires to hear about Krishna in all the details, that's one of the other aspects. The more we hear, the more, as you can tell from Parikshit Maharaj, when he's inquiring from Shukadeva Goswami, he wants to know about everything. Like, why do you ask that question? And Prabhupada answers in his purport that because it's related to Krishna. Directly, indirectly, anything related to Krishna, he wants to know it, he wants to drink it with his ears. And as we continue to hear, we'll also develop such an impetus to hear more and to hear the details. And that will develop into this same sense that Ramdas Vipra has for hearing Ramayana. And Rupa Goswami then says, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavtomati Kriyatam Yadi Kritopi Labdite tataloyam api mulyamekalam janmakoti sukritirna labhyate. You can't get that kind of desire to hear about Krishna from doing good works in this world, some sukriti, because it's not mode of goodness. You can cultivate mode of goodness, but it won't bring you to this intense desire to hear Krishna, about Krishna. But by association of Vaishnavas who are interested in hearing, and by being patient and listening to Krishna book, to the Srimad Bhagavatam, to the Bhagavad Gita, to the books that Prabhupada gave us, entering again and again into hearing them, there will be a natural attraction. And that attraction, says Rupa Goswami, when it comes to a sense of greed, you can tell the intensity of Ramdas Vipra because he said, I'd rather die than think about this idea of Sita being touched by Ravana. He was so absorbed in the pastime. And so when our desire is on the stove, or our practice is on the stove and the fire's coming up, you can see from water, those who are cooks, they know there are different levels of temperature in the water. You can do it even without a thermometer. I know my grandmother was a cook, and she was saying that when those tiny little bubbles come up, she said, okay, that's called smiling, the water's smiling, because it's a little bit boiling. And then when it's raging boiling and it's spilling over, that's the topmost. And so there's different levels of desire we may have for devotional service. The intention is to hear until, well, you can feel it's smiling, like, yeah, I got to get back there. I want to hear the class. I don't want to stand on the corner and gossip. I want to hear the katha. And then it becomes more and more imperative to hear. And when it becomes lullium, what's described as a kind of greed, that you'll steal it wherever you can and you can't do without it at any time, then he says that's the price of admission into bhakti. And I heard a story, it was attributed to Socrates, that he had a student who came to him and said he was very eager to learn a certain discipline. And he said, how can I do it, my master? And Socrates walked a little ways with him, and they waded into a pond. And very shockingly, the teacher, Socrates, grabbed the student by the shoulders and pushed him under the water until there were bubbles coming up. And then he let him up from the water. He said, what were you thinking about? He said, air. He said, when you come to that level of desire for this discipline, then you'll be successful, and no other way. So Rupa Goswami is saying a similar thing. Develop this sense of intense desire called lullium or greed to hear about Krishna, and Tanama Rupa Charitari Sukirtanana means practice until you come to that position. Because if you can't taste it now, it's only because of rajas and tamas. But that will diminish over time. Take the medicine until it begins to smile. Your heart's smiling, like the little bubbles are coming up. Like, yeah, a little bit's there. And then keep it on the heat. And gradually, it comes to that point of intense boiling. Now we have just a few minutes for a few reflections or questions. Yes?
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for the katha. I was just thinking about your grandmother's simile that she used to give about smiling water and boiling water. I was working with Charu Namai Prabhu yesterday in the kitchen, and we were both standing at the stove. He was making sambar and I was making chapatis. And he would every now and then say, the water is not boiling. I'm not getting the boil. And then finally the boil happened and the flit kind of flew off, and then he was happy. And then, he left and he was doing other things as well. And I was continuing to do chapati, and then it boiled again. And I was like, oh, whoa, it's boiling. And then I removed the lid again, and I called him and I said, hey, this was boiling one again time. He said, but I had switched off the stove. I said, no, but it boiled over. And then he said, maybe it boiled on its own. So I was just thinking that in devotional service, when you have that boiling desire, after some time it comes on its own. Vaidhi Bhakti versus Raganuga.
It's a nice metaphor. And, a watch pot never boils. That's the old saying. If you're hanging around, when are you going to boil? When are you going to boil? Better just to be engaged, keep the fire on, be methodical, know that water boils, and know that the Bhagavatam says your heart will transform. Don't stop the process due to impatience, and continue. Another one? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So when you were talking about this boiling point, right, I was thinking about a couple of pastimes in Bhagavatam, how Krishna arranged Bharata Maharaj to get a deer's body, only to increase his longing for Krishna. So similarly, Chitraketu Maharaj was also cursed by Mother Parvati, so that he can think about Krishna in a more intense way. So all these, these things are arranged by the Lord, but that is only to increase the separation from Krishna, the intensity of love for him.
Yes. And the overarching feeling in the Ramayana is shoka. There's this deep sense of lamentation and separation and so forth. Someone might say, what is all this? Kind of ending to the Ramayana is this, and so forth. Just when you think it's all over, and then Sita gets separated again. And the pastimes of the Lord, and we find that throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, have a sense of being a counterpart of what happens in the material world. Only in the material world, all you get is shoka. Whereas, as our acharyas point out in talking about Ramayana and all the other pastimes of the Lord, where there seems to be reversals, from that drama, we get pulled in, and we also get ananda. What's more, they point out that these are not ordinary pastimes. When the Lord's lamenting, he's simultaneously experiencing the highest ananda, because they're transrational. They're not part of the material world. 1-2.
Maharaj, in the morning when you were describing that how we are so lucky to be here in Prabhupada's presence and this spiritual world, later you told that how the desires that is keeping us in this world, and I was reflecting yesterday. Like so many illustrious, so many advanced devotees are here in this room, and I was thinking that how fortunate is the Bay Area people that they take out time and go out and meet the people. Especially I was in some group, and there was an advice that there's advice that in that area of San Francisco, don't even drive. And I saw that devotees went to that place and then distributed books, and also another devotee was saying that there was like so many DJs and all things were running in that room, and some very famous DJ person came. I don't know name, but yeah. So that so all the old remembers of the song came to them also, but they were still doing that service. I was just thinking that how come, what is that special mercy? And I could relate that it's just Prabhupada's grace that he has given that special mood that to go out and give that mercy. So just extending that.
Yeah, yesterday I went to San Francisco to see the illustrious Bhakti SF. And as it turned out, it's the new center, and this is the first time I've been there, to the new place. It's only several blocks from where I joined the Hare Krishna movement way back when, which was 52 years ago in San Francisco. And it was nostalgic for me, especially because when I got there at the center, there were these beautiful, effulgent devotees standing outside the center that looked like good old-fashioned Hare Krishna. And they were chanting with so much enthusiasm, and it reminded me of the first time I drove up to the Hare Krishna temple on Valencia Street, which turns out to be 355, right? That was 755. 455 Valencia. And I just remember the contrast of seeing the temple for the first time. It said Radha Krishna Temple on the outside, and the sidewalk was painted with lotus flowers on it. And I saw devotees with their saffron robes on and so forth, and I said, get me in there. And I felt the same thing yesterday when I pulled up at Bhakti SF. The devotees were so enthusiastic and so innocent and just drinking the holy name. And then I observed the people of San Francisco who are noticeably downtrodden. I mean, even those who are not passed out on the sidewalk. And there are quite a few of them. They seemed a little bit beleaguered and beaten up. And then when I heard the holy name, I felt, yeah, the sun has come up. And I'm resonating with what you said about how important it is to take out the holy name, even if we seem to be not comparative to the big corporations. They're wantonly building all over the Bay Area. They build these huge buildings and they can barely fill them up. And then they have so much going on with research and so forth, but where does it all end? It doesn't end in a place where anybody really feels satisfied. But simple Hare Krishna, simple hearing the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra, just read Krishna book, have a little hot milk, take rest, wake up, worship Tulsi Devi, chant your rounds, and associate with devotees as much as possible. Try to be a kind friend to all living beings by opening your house so other people can come in. And you don't have to be a big hero. You can be a small private hero. Control your senses, follow 4 regular principles. And from this process, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shows is the authorized way by following the Shastra, and he approved of this method, we can have festivals, chant Hare Krishna, and go back home, back to Godhead. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmana Shringadev, Shri Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. If you so desire, please inspire us to continuously hear, or at least once a day, take time to hear about your glories, to finish our rounds, to stay away from stupid stuff, and to associate with devotees whenever possible. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with these prayers in whole or in part, say Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. Vajagalpadurishya Kripasandabe Vichapatitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. No prasadam. We'll see you back at 3:30 for the next part of our program, and we'll really cook it up tonight. So we'll be here into the wee hours of the night, chanting mantras and Kirtan, and you'll even have prasadam back at that time.